So I wanted to do a piece today about relationships. I have spoken at length about individual self-esteem issues, which are really, really important because when you're in a relationship, you bring a sense of who you are to the relationship. In any committed romantic relationship, the basic thing that happens is you fall in love. There's something about you that I want to be with, and hopefully there's something about me that you want to be with, and well, we find that. And it's imperfect, but we find some version of that, and we make a commitment. And that then becomes a committed relationship. When you make commitments, you've basically got agreements. And when you have agreements, then you either honor and follow up on your agreements, or you expect the other person to honor and follow up on theirs. You bring yourself, they bring themselves, but it's not just this business agreement, although it's got that. It's this matter of the heart. I take a piece of my heart and I offer it to you. You take a piece of your heart and you offer it back. We hold inside ourselves a piece of the other person, and they hold inside of themselves a piece of me. That's what makes them magical. There's something magical about doing that. And so we call that a bond. It's a special, kind of a sacred bond, and there's no great mystery as to why religion and traditions are bound up in the sacredness of marriage, because there's something special about offering a piece of yourself to another human being out of love. The individual and what they think about themselves, if they give a piece of themselves to the other individual and they have low self-esteem, then the other person is holding some of that, and vice versa. So today, what I want to try and talk about is how we have natural conflicts in relationships. Natural conflicts come from the fact that I'm a person and you're a person and we're different. I might want to go have Chinese food and you might want to go have Mexican food. I might enjoy going to the museum and you enjoy going to the ocean. So many differences. We still fall in love and we give a piece of our heart and take a piece of the other, and we have that bond. But then when we start living together and doing life together and we discover we're different and we don't always agree, this is human. This is normal and natural. There's nothing to be worried about. If what I'm saying worries you, then we have to have a therapy session to discuss that. Mature adult relationships understand that there's a certain level of commitment, bonding, connection, and fulfillment that happens in a romantic relationship. And so when difference comes into it, conflict is natural. Most of us try to embrace that conflict. We understand, usually starting from people who warn us about marriage, going on to the ceremony itself, there's usually a discussion in there about the sacredness and the importance of honoring and of trusting and of being friends and communicating and things like this. But when it comes to differences, we need to teach people and understand for ourselves that accepting difference is part of the work of marriage or of any long-term committed relationship. And so when those conflicts come, they should be seen as normal and embraced. They should be talked about because they can become irritations and they can start to damage the relationship. But there's an understanding that we can never really change the other person. We both value this relationship enough to be honest with each other about kind of who you are, how I experience you. Conflict in relationships is normal and we want to validate it, and also understand that it should never go beyond the point of providing feedback. Because if you really think about it, everybody's imperfect. Everyone has problems and flaws. So a mature relationship accepts not only that, but that you are annoying to me, but I'm annoying to you. And I don't want you to annoy me, and I'm sure you don't want me to annoy you. And so we got to give each other feedback because we're different. We don't always see ourselves. We don't know what we're like to live with. We only know what the other person is like to live with. And so the idea is that we agree to express to one another openly and honestly when it's difficult. And as we know that people's sense of themselves is involved, we're going to be careful because we're holding that piece of their heart and they're holding a piece of ours. So when we have to talk to them about their more annoyingness, or their immature sides, or their rude and difficult parts, we have to recognize that we need to be tender because they're going to do the same with us. And no one likes to be corrected. No one likes to feel that the other person's disappointed in us or is frustrated by us. That doesn't feel good to us, just like it doesn't feel good to them. So there's this very adult way that I'm describing a relationship. Because children just want what they want. And when they can't have what they want, they get upset, have tantrums and things like that, because they're struggling with the idea that the world is more than them. The world includes other people, and sometimes they have to do things they don't want to do. That's just the way life works. Well, adult relationships have to embrace that mature adultness, which says that I'm imperfect and you are too. And I know I need to be able to give you feedback because I want you to be able to take it in and maybe do some changing. And I imagine you want the same from me. And so we agree to that, and we agree to be tender and loving in how we do that and careful, because we're in this for the long haul. Relations start to get really unhealthy when we start to talk about who you are. Because when I'm talking about who you are, it's that little piece of yourself that you gave me and that little piece that I gave you, those start to get squeezed. And our partners start to feel rejected or shamed, judged and condemned. And that's an extraordinarily unhealthy environment in which to live that can become toxic over time. It doesn't mean that you're unhealthy or they're unhealthy or the relationship's unhealthy. It means that something is blocking the flow of honest feedback, or somebody hasn't fully agreed that they are sometimes annoying to live with. Sometimes we have unrealistic views of ourselves. We see ourselves so highly that we come across as arrogant and we can't take feedback, or we see ourselves so lowly that we can't take any feedback without feeling terrible about ourselves. There are lots of reasons why things can get interrupted, and we can move from talking about kind of what you do that affects me and what I would like instead, and how much I would appreciate that if you would take that in and bring that to pass. And I'm sure you want the same for me, and we do a lot of giving and taking in this relationship. That's what makes us strong, right? That's where we want to stay. When we get outside of that and we start talking about you're such a jerk and you're so unreliable and you're a butthead, when we get into that realm, we're no longer talking about behavior, we're talking about who you are. You're a jerk in my eyes. You're a butthead in my eyes. You're unreliable in my eyes. The other person feels the squeeze. Now, depending on their relationship with that particular kind of pain, they may break down, they may get angry, they could get defensive, they could attack back, they could run away. There's so many different kinds of behaviors that people do to sort of protect themselves and to respond. But that is where couples get in trouble, and that's what brings people in, is that it starts being about who you are and what that means, and everyone's feeling that squeeze, and the bond is starting to break. I'm still holding a piece of your heart, and you're still holding a piece of mine, but I'm squeezing it because you're really not listening, and I'm angry at you. And then the other person's going, ow, why are you doing that? Ow, why are you doing that? And we're going, I've been trying to tell you and you're not listening. And it just goes terrible from there. So if you relate to any of all of what I'm saying, then you probably are getting an idea of maybe where you need to work. Maybe you're somebody who has to come back to the basic agreements that I can be annoying and that people might be frustrated with me because I'm having a hard time listening to how annoying I can be, but I know I gotta do it because I want them to hear that from me too, and that's the best way we can get along. Some people have forgotten this. Some people never knew it, but that's where you got to get to. That's where you got to get to. And by the way, one thing that's really important is that it's important to acknowledge that it's a vulnerable, scary thing to be open and really direct with your spouse. You don't have to be direct, there's other methods, but to communicate clearly that, hey, this bugs me. If you care about me, I know you're holding a piece of my heart. Would you do this for me? Because this is really hard for me. It takes courage to initiate those conversations. If your spouse comes to you and basically says, it annoys me when you blah, blah, blah. If you say, yeah, well, it annoys me when you blah, 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 you're piggybacking on their courage. Now, maybe what you'll say to me is, they're always criticizing me. I'm just swatting it back at them and they can't take what they're dishing out. I do understand that people get stuck in those cycles. And if that's you, we really urge you to call New Growth Counseling to get out of that, because that kind of a cycle going around for time can really destroy the bond of closeness, warmth, affection, and trust. But if you're not, you want to get to that place of sharing in your humanity, being accepting of your own imperfections and those of others. That's hard for some people. They're perfectionists. They have high standards. They can't see themselves as flawed. It's too threatening. If that's you, again, we encourage you to get counseling, because you need to be able to see yourself as normal and healthy, and your spouse is normal and healthy too, which means you're not perfect. And sometimes you're annoying. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. Doesn't mean that you're not worthy of love and respect and your humanity. Hopefully some of this is helping you to recognize where you need to go, how you need to grow, the targets you need to hit, or maybe where you're stuck. All the best to you.